Hello, good afternoon, everybody, and a happy new year. Welcome to Parallel's first Lunch and Learn of 2025, and hopefully it's a good one. Hopefully you are thinking about some New Year's resolutions, and one of your New Year's resolutions might be to gain Chartered Project Professional status. So welcome everybody who is joining us live. Welcome to anybody that's watching this on catch up on record as well. I'd like to say hello to Carmen Campos, Senior Consultant Trainer from Parallel, who is going to help you chart your path to Chartered Project Professional, ChPP, success in 2025. I'm Ruth Phillips. I'm the Head of Training Delivery at Parallel, and I'm going to be the host for today. Let's have a look first at the agenda. So Carmen's going to give us a bit of an introduction to ChPP. This might be something quite new to you if you're thinking about starting on this. So she's going to run you through what ChPP actually is, the benefits of becoming ChPP and who that is aimed at. And then she's going to run you through the application process for the various pathways that there are to get you to chartered status. Then talk about how to get started, and then we'll wrap up by looking at all of the support and resources that Parallel provides to help you prepare your application. We will have a Q&A at the end. Please feel free to put any comments, questions in the LinkedIn chat as we go through this, and then I will have a look at those at the end of the session, and Carmen and I will hopefully answer all of your questions at that point. Right. Okay. So, Carmen, over to you then. Let's hear a little bit more about what Chartered Project Professional is and the benefits that it will bring to us.
Thank you, and welcome to everybody. Happy New Year, all of you. Thank you for joining us today. So we thought the first thing we could cover before talking into details of the application process is to really explain what is ChPP, because we recognize that some of you may be joining from different countries, or perhaps this is the first time you start thinking about becoming a chartered project professional. So just a little bit of history about that. Royal charters in general are used to recognize professional bodies that work in public sector, and in 2027, the APM was awarded the Royal Charter by the Queen Elizabeth II. So the idea is to provide the gold standard for the project profession. And note that we said the project profession, not just project managers. So it's for everybody involved in any supporting role or program portfolio management role. So the idea behind is that achieving charter status demonstrates that you have acquired a particular level of advanced technical knowledge and professional practice delivering reasonably complex projects or programs or portfolios, and also shows your commitment to the ethical and professional practice and behaviors. So the APM ChPP standard is based on the competence framework. The competence framework defines a number of competencies that people in the project, program, or portfolio management profession should be competent at. The benefits of becoming a charter is not just general for the individual. You know that by achieving the charter status, you have a globally recognized benchmark. There are additional advantages of that. You also could increase your job market opportunities, even earning potential. And once you receive the ChPP status, your name will be in the register, and you're also included in network opportunities to try to collaborate with other charter project professionals. Organizations as well worldwide are starting seeing the importance of getting their employees becoming charter project professionals, because it builds trust with your clients, it builds trust with particular competence, that the caliber of staff will be people with recognized level of professional practice, technical competence, and following the best practice and ethical standards. In general, there is a lot of benefits for the profession. It raises the profile of project, program, and portfolio management, and ultimately, the society also benefits because any advances in the science or best practice for project management will benefit any other projects developed for the public sector. So, we have summarized some of the key benefits. What is ChPP? Why somebody want to become a charter? Let's talk a little bit more about the demands and also who is ChPP for, who will be eligible for that. But before we do that, I wanted to show you on this diagram the different project management qualifications from different professional bodies, not only APM, to try to explain you what is the level of technical knowledge required for achieving these stages. So you could see all the different APM qualifications, like for example, PFQ, where you need to demonstrate basic knowledge by completing a multiple choice question exam. Then qualifications like APM PMQ or PMI PMP will demonstrate a deeper level of knowledge. After that, some people may go to PPQ, for example, to demonstrate the theoretical application of that knowledge. And finally, to become chartered project professional, you need to demonstrate that level of theoretical application, but also demonstrate that you have applied that knowledge into real world projects, projects that have a level of complexity. So this is the basis of the assessment for ChPP. In order to be eligible, you don't need to have all these qualifications. There are a number of pathways to apply for ChPP, which we will cover in a moment. But even without having any qualifications, PMQ, PPQ, you could still be eligible because the minimum requirements is to have a proven track record in project, program, or portfolio delivery, or a particular involvement in a support function. Having that advanced knowledge of the current practices, even if you don't have the qualification, and being very actively involved and up to date with the current trends and best practices. You will also expect it to commit to keep your CPD, and we did other talk recently as well about what is CPD. So you need to commit to continuously developing yourself, and also you need to agree to commit to the code of conduct and all the behaviors and best practice expected in terms of what is acceptable in the profession. So your values and your behaviors. So this is the criteria to be eligible. You may wonder, some of you may be thinking, okay, I think I'm ready to get started. I think I'm eligible. How do I go about it? What is the process? So in the following slides, we're going to try to summarize the different ways to apply to charter. And the pathway will primarily depend on whether you have any recognized assessment or not. On the APM website, you could find a list of all the recognized assessments. So if you don't have any of those, you most likely have to go following pathway 1, which is the experiential route. Is probably the most demanding route because it's for those individuals that don't have any recognized assessment of professional practice, i.e. experience or advanced technical knowledge. Okay, so that's pathway 1. If you have a recognized assessment for advanced technical knowledge, one example of that is a PPQ qualification or some master degrees in project management of a list of a particular university, you may then be following pathway 2. And as I said, always check the APM website for the latest list because sometimes the list may be updated. Pathway 3, you may have heard in September this was a new pathway announced, and it's for individuals with a PMQ or a PMP qualification. So this has now been recognized as an assessment for professional practice. And finally, pathway 4 is for people who have a recognized assessment for technical knowledge and professional practice. And the only example I can think of right now is Registered Project Professional, RPP. So RPP is a recognized assessment for professional practice and technical knowledge. To get more information about other recognized assessments, you could find that on the APM website. And once you are clear on which pathway you need to apply in order to submit your application, the next thing you need to understand is the demands for your pathway, because what is required for one route will be different to others. The most demanding one, as I said earlier, is Pathway 1. Both of them, Pathway 1 and Pathway 2, require a written submission with professional practice statements on 12 competencies. The difference is that Pathway 1, not having recognized assessment, will have to explore both your experience, your professional practice, and your advanced technical knowledge at the interview. Whereas Pathway 2, people, for example, who have a PPQ, they already demonstrated that technical knowledge, so they will be exempt from that at the interview. The interview will only cover a conversation, an exploration of your professional experience. If you are Pathway 3, you pass your PMQ or you have your PMP, you only require to complete a written submission against 8 of the competencies. And we will show you what the competencies are in a minute. At the interview, because the PMQ and the PMP is a recognized assessment for professional practice, the interview will primarily focus on the advanced technical knowledge. And finally, Pathway 4 doesn't require any written application. So the application process for that last pathway is just the interview, containing 30 minutes of discussion about the validation of your CPD and ethics. For all the routes, it is required to commit to the APM Code of Conduct and to commit 35 hours of CPD every year. And it's a requirement that you will have to maintain as well going forward once you become a chartered project professional to retain your ChPP status. When you write your evidence of professional practice, so when you write your application and start writing your experience against the projects, programs, or portfolios of choice, if all of these projects, programs, or portfolios are older than 5 years, in addition to that, you may have to write something they call a currency statement, and it's just mainly to confirm how you remain current and up to date. But usually people don't need to do that. So let's clarify some of the terminology. So we mentioned in the application process that we need to write an application against some competencies. These are the competencies from the competence framework where you need to demonstrate your professional practice, your experience. So how did you demonstrate your capabilities in the following competencies against the projects that you were involved? Some of them, as you can see, are mandatory, or some pairs are mandatory, and some of them are elective. If you are Pathway 1 and 2, you will have to do 7 mandatory and 5 elective. If you have a PMQ or a PMP, you have to do only 1 elective, so 7 mandatory and 1 elective. Each of these competencies have a criteria associated. So I just wanted to illustrate with this example what I mean. So for example, if you decided to write your application against budgeting and cost control, you will have to demonstrate a number of these items in the criteria, at least 4, okay? So the best thing you need to do before making a decision is to go to the APM ChPP standard, read the criteria, and decide which one you best demonstrated on your projects. Okay, so remember, PP is your experience on your projects. When you demonstrate the technical knowledge, if it's something you need to demonstrate in your route, you also need to pay attention to the criteria, because the technical knowledge may be assessed at the interview on the competencies that you selected for your application. So it's not a bad idea as well when you make the choice about which competencies I want to put in my application to try to understand the advanced technical knowledge that will be required to demonstrate. And again, this is another example. In budgeting and cost control, these are the list of items where you need to demonstrate your competence, your understanding of the theories. So that's the process. You may be wondering now, how do I get started? What do I do first? So, as I said in the introduction, this assessment doesn't really require an oral exam or a written exam. What it is essentially a two-stage process. So, first, you write an application, is submitted to the APM. If the application is successful, you get invited to an interview. So before even thinking about writing or reading the criteria, it's quite important to plan the timings as well, because APM receive and process applications in what they call assessment cycles. So every 2 or 3 months, they will have a deadline for all applications to be submitted, and these applications will be reviewed and processed within that cycle. You could find the timings as well on the APM website. The next one, for example, the next deadline, I think is the 21st of March. So once you decide what timings work best for you, and once you're clear on the pathway that is applicable to you, then you can start familiarizing yourself with the criteria associated. There is a really good tool as well on the APM website to do a self-assessment. So for each of the competencies, you could assess yourself against the criteria to help you in deciding which ones are your strongest competence areas. And the choice of that will be in line with your choice of projects, programs, or portfolios. APM called them your project overviews. And to be honest, in my personal opinion, 2 and 3, step 2 and step 3, almost go in parallel, because the choice of your competencies will depend on the choice of projects where you can demonstrate them. And for your application, you are allowed to write anything between 1 to 4 project overviews. When I said project overviews, I mean projects, programs, or portfolios where you have sufficient responsibility or sufficient accountability. Once you're happy with that, then we can crack on and we can start having a go at writing your application. So your application, in addition to the commitment to CPD and ethics and the details of your 2 proposers or referees, will include your project overviews, so 500 words for each, and your professional practice statements against the number of competence required for your pathway. And each of them will have to have up to 250 words. Now, that sounds easier saying than that. It takes a lot of work and commitment. It is not trivial. And there is a lot of support available and a lot of resources that you could use to help you with the preparation of your application. At Parallel, we provide a lot of support, whether you just want to have a self-paced guidance and get information from our e-learning or study guide, to all the way to have a one-to-one coaching support. So you could also have a package that includes the handbook, e-learning, and also a coach supporting you with preparation of the application and also practicing and preparing for your interview. If more of your colleagues see this as, some of the aspiration and goals, we also support with corporate programs as well. So you could have a tutor-led program where we provide not only all the support before, but also working as part of a cohort is quite useful because you could get collaboration amongst colleagues and gives you the commitment to meet your deadlines and work towards your goals as well. So there is a number of options available at the moment, and we could also discuss with you your circumstances because we could adapt to that as well. Once you have all that information and you have a go at start writing your application, feel free to contact us at parallel projecttraining.com, and we can discuss your needs and maybe any other support required. So, in summary, hopefully today you are now a bit more informed as to what is ChPP, the different routes or pathways to achieve ChPP status. Also, now you know that if you have a PMQ, you are entitled and eligible for a fast track route to chartership. And finally, it is not trivial. It requires an application and a follow up interview, but is totally, totally worth it. So I think with that in mind, the last thing for me to say, Ruth, before I hand it over to you, is that you have a QR code there as well. If you want to scan it, that will take directly to our website. Is there anything else you think we should add, Ruth?
I don't think so. I think that's been a really comprehensive look at gaining chartered status, Carmen. Thank you very much. I've got a couple of questions already. So as we're wrapping up now, if anybody that is watching at the moment has got any other questions, please do pop them into the comments area now, and we'll answer those in turn. Yeah, one thing I'd just like to ask you, Carmen. So you are a chartered project professional. So what did it mean to you in your career to gain that status?
That's a good question, actually. Um, I think is the recognition. I think is good for me to know that I have achieved that, but it's not something that people take as that's the end and you relax. For me, it's only a blip in my career, like, like a little blip, because it just encourages me to keep up to date, keep working on that. So you have achieved or you have attained a level in technical knowledge. You have demonstrated that on real projects. It's not the end of the journey.
Yeah.
So I think for me, it gives me more confidence in my ability. Whereas before, and probably that resonates with some project managers, we just learn by bitter experience. We do another project and we learn and we adapt and we try to become better and not fall into the same mistakes. But achieving that status gave me more confidence in myself,
Yeah.
in my ability. So that was probably the most important takeaway
Yeah.
from that recognition.
Yeah, that's fantastic, and I think you mentioned it as you were talking us through the presentation. The importance of continuing professional development is absolutely core to this, and I'd encourage anybody that if you're thinking of applying for chartered, and you're a little bit unsure as to what the requirements for continuing professional development (CPD) are, as Carmen mentioned, we have done a previous lunch and learn, which you'll be able to see from the parallel feed. Okay, right. Okay, so we're going to have a few questions now. So I'm just going to move us on to the next slide. So Sean, you've asked a question here. Why is the pathway more advanced for somebody with a PPQ versus somebody who has a PMQ? So there are fewer competencies that you've got to demonstrate, aren't there, with a PMQ than
Yeah,
a PPQ?
yeah.
Yeah, there we go. I'm just going to take that question off so that we can see the full screen on there. So yeah.
Yeah, it's a very good question. The way I see it is not more advanced, it is different. So I thought going back to this slide may help me clarifying your question. So some people has come to us and say why people with PMQ have to do 8 and people with PPQ have to do 12. So I partially agree with you, Sean, that that is an advantage for people with PMQ. But having said that, the interview, the technical part of the interview has a much higher bar than the professional practice exploration of the interview. I'm not going to go into detail about the scoring, but the scoring at the interview for TK are much tighter, and people with PPQ are completely exempt from that. And I personally, because I did the demanding route, I find that it's much easier to demonstrate what you've done in an oral conversation, because the questions are more about your projects. How did you do this? Could you describe in more detail how did you go about that on your project, than having to defend advanced technical questions or the theoretical application of that. So yeah, people see that differently, to be honest. And one of the things I didn't point out during the presentation is that unfortunately you cannot combine. So if you did both qualifications, you did PMQ, and then after that you did PPQ, you will have to wait. You will have to wait and make the decision. Do you want to apply under Pathway 2, or do you want to apply under Pathway 3? So I don't know if that answer your question, Sean. Some people see that as an advantage. Pathway 2 is easier. Some people see Pathway 3 easier. I suppose it depends where the strengths are. But personally, I think, in my opinion, it's easier to demonstrate your PP at the interview stage than the TKs, even though you may have to demonstrate that against 12 competencies, not 8.
Right. Yeah, that's a really good question, Sean. Thank you
Yeah,
very
really good
much for that.
question.
And I think, Carmen, you've explained that that well. And I guess everybody will have their personal opinion about that. But I think that your answer there about the ease maybe of talking about your own experience and what you've done compared to having a 60-minute grilling on your technical knowledge is possibly possibly a better route. Sean said, "Oh, thank you for clarifying. Doing PPQ shortly." So
Yeah, it's not
Sean,
better or
we're
worse, isn't it? It's
yeah
not better or
yes
worse.
yes.
It's whether you do it step by step. You do PMQ, then PPQ, or you demonstrate that theoretical application straight into the
Yeah,
interview. Because for the same reason, some people might say, why do I need to do any of them anyway? If I could just go Pathway 1, well, Pathway 1 would be much more steeper. Is how
yeah,
steep you want to do your journey, whether you want to do it gradually or whether you want to take any of these shortcuts.
yes.
But it's good to see that there are options available, so it's better to be well informed so you could make the decision that is better for your particular situation.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So, good luck in your PPQ, Sean, and ultimately, good luck in gaining chartered status if that's what you're aiming to do ultimately. Okay, I'm also, while we're just answering some questions, I'm just going to put Parallel's details up on the screen there, if you haven't got those already. So we've got another question about the kind of the global nature of this. So Carmen, you mentioned that ChPP was granted a royal charter a few years ago. Is it a globally recognised status?
Yes, it is. And we start seeing more and more people globally pursuing this because, particularly with the launch of the new pathway and, encouraging people from other professional bodies, we start seeing more and more interest in people in the US, people in other countries. So one of the things the APM says often in events is about the profession, and we're just one profession. So even if you started your journey with other memberships or other institutes like the PMI, the APM is the only professional body that can award ChPP. So it's something that today is globally recognized, and you could start with other courses, other membership, but ultimately, if you want to achieve that gold standard, the APM is the only professional body that have that status. So definitely, I mean, what I've seen from the last few years is it's gone much widely. So we start seeing more and more people coming from different countries, which is really great to see.
Yeah, absolutely, and certainly, I think we can speak from experience from our own client base, Carmen, that
Hmm.
absolutely it does have that global applicability.
Hmm.
Fantastic. Okay, well, we don't have any more questions in the chat, so I think we'll wrap things up. As Carmen said, I will reiterate again now. If you have got this on your to-do list for 2025, please do get in touch with us if you'd like any more further advice or guidance. Carmen's outlined the support that we can provide. I would also recommend the APM website as well. If you want to know about more detail about what those recognised assessments are, the cycles of applications, the APM has got all of that information as well. So please do use that as a resource. Okay, but apart from that, I'd just like to say thank you, Carmen, so much for the benefit of your wisdom as both a chartered project professional and somebody that coaches people through to this status. Thank you for talking us today. I hope everybody's found this
Thank
a
you.
useful and informative session, and we would be delighted to help anybody with their chartered applications going forward. Thanks very
Thank
much,
you.
everybody, and bye bye.